After a disappointing preseason week 1 performance against the Titans, the Eagles rebounded to take an impressive victory over the Jacksonville Jaguars, and while score is not important, I think it's safe to say that there was a drastic contrast between what we saw in Philadelphia and what we saw in the road in Jacksonville. But this has posed some very interesting scenarios moving forward into week 3, so with that in mind, here are 10 things we learned about the Eagles in last night's 24-10 win over Jacksonville. Before we get started though guys, of course make sure you leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you enjoy this sort of content, and as always make sure you drop your comments down below on all of the things discussed in today's video, and you can check out daily Philadelphia sports content from myself and all of our writers at phillysportsnetwork.com. The first immediate takeaway is that now the Eagles may need to sign another quarterback. Cody Kessler would attempt just 4 passes before hitting the ground hard and being taken out of the game, and there was some bizarre opinions on this hit as well, with some people blaming Andre Dillard, which wasn't the case. He was sliding inside to account for the fact there was a blitzing linebacker. But the quarterback who was playing his former team was immediately placed in concussion protocol, handing the reins over Clayton Thorson, and we'll get to his little breakout in due course. But if Kessler is out for 1 or maybe 2 weeks, the Eagles may need to sign a camp arm after all. Whoever that may be, I've got no idea. Could it be Sam Bradford? Could it be Johnny Manziel? Who knows? There are a plethora of names that could fit this bill, but the Eagles are going to have 2 healthy quarterbacks. They've got practices against the Baltimore Ravens. I don't think they're going to expose Carson Wentz to preseason action, but they may feel the need to get a quarterback in, because if Thorson does go down, God forbid, in week number 3, you're looking at either Greg Ward or Braxton Miller to take QB snaps, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but ideally you want another redshirt quarterback who can just come in for a couple of weeks and at least audition for a practice squad role or something like that. Or they could give Thorson the whole game because he looked good. Point number 2. Alright, let's just get to the chase here. Where did that come from? Maybe it was just first game jitters, or perhaps the pressure put on his shoulders after a really tough debut. Either way, Clayton Thorson balled out on Thursday night, throwing for 175 yards, completing 16 of 26 passes, scoring a touchdown, and throwing a dodgy interception that really wasn't an interception. Thorson threw a gorgeous pass to 6'6" Agadosi, who showed some toe drag swag to haul it in over 2 defenders. He looked confident, poised, and more importantly, comfortable. He was a complete contrast to what we saw 1 week ago, and this wasn't just a sign of life. This was a rebirth of a project quarterback who may just have a high ceiling after all. Now admittedly, I don't want to get too excited here because the bar last week was so low, even completing 3 of 26 passes was probably going to be an improvement, but Thorson looked serviceable, and that in itself is a huge step forward from what we saw. There were certainly still problems. The touchdown pass to Greg Ward Jr. I felt was underthrown, and we'll get to that I'm sure in a film room later this week, but overall there are plenty of positives to take, especially considering the Eagles are now down to 2 signal callers. My main worry coming into this week was that if Thorson was as bad as he was against the Titans, it would really hurt the guys around him. But in fact, it was the inverse. He elevated those wide receivers, and that brings us to point number 3. Someone's going to have a massive headache when it comes down to roster cuts. In the space of 1 game, Greg Ward Jr. scored a touchdown and led the team in receiving. Carlton Agadosi looked like Optimus Prime. Charles Johnson put the drops behind him and looked genuinely impressive on his 3 receptions. Mark Michelle had a nice catch and run in space, further cementing his potential spot as a backup slot receiver who can really exercise those yards after the catch. And Mac Hollins proved he still exists. Yeah, I'm out of breath too. How on earth are the Eagles going to trim this position down? I never know. It's a great problem to have, but all of the guys who are scrapping over those final roster spots look really, really good. And that game against the Ravens holds so much more weight now, because with all of the receivers flashing, there's no one really taking a step back. Someone's got to foot the bill, and I can see a couple of surprises come those final cutdowns. 2 tackles, 2 sacks, and a tackle for a loss. Just another day at the office then for the former Texas A&M Aggie, right? Deshaun Hall looked just as dangerous as he did last week, which is gonna do his chances of not just making the roster, but making a defensive impact next year wonders. 1 more week like that and it's all going to be signed, sealed and delivered. And did you know that in all of the following categories, Deshaun Hall now leads the NFL? Quarterback hits, sacks and tackles for a loss. I'd say that's pretty good for a guy that was so far down the depth chart, he wasn't even making rumbles going into training camp, and he's come out of training camp looking like an absolute machine. So the Eagles may well have a hidden gem here in the former 3rd round pick. And for my own personal brand, we had a Boston Scott sighting, who has become a communal favourite here at Philly Sports Network, and after missing the first preseason game due to injury, Scott led the team in rushing, carrying the ball 7 times for 43 yards, which was a stark contrast to the complete lack of rushing efficiency we saw from Eagles running backs last week. So that one drive in the 4th quarter where the Eagles went from their own side of the field, scored a touchdown just by rushing the ball, it was excellent. But both Pumphrey and Boston Scott look pretty good with their elusive jump cuts. Is there a chance either sneak onto the roster? You never know, but just in case they don't, at least we have this memento from last night's stream. Hand it off to Boston Scott. Boston Scott. Boston Scott. Yeah. And on that note, guys, I just wanted to say a massive thank you to anyone that tuned in to last night's live stream. It was an absolute blast. I loved every second of it. And of course, you can count on there being another watch-along live stream. So if you can't find a place to watch the Eagles preseason action, or if you just want to join over 7,000 Eagles fans who are in this stream, who are constantly in the live chat, then this is the place to be. There's going to be plenty more information in the next week, but this is the most fun I've had on this channel. I hope to see as many of you possible there, and thank you for all of your continued support. Considering he's only been on the team for less than the amount of time it takes to boil a kettle, Aziz Shitu has played extremely well. The young defensive tackle rejoined the Eagles this week and blocked 2 passes, sacked the quarterback, and added a tackle for a loss to his name. A late contender for the defensive tackle 4 or 5 role? Maybe, just maybe. Shitty's been here before, of course, spending time with the team in 2017, but now he looks like he's back with a vengeance and was certainly flashing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. After a quiet debut, coveted undrafted free agent linebacker TJ Edwards exploded onto the scene. Edwards was consistently around the ball, making big plays, and had a big time tackle for a loss too. In fact, all of the linebackers look strong, which is going to put even more pressure on the group going into week number 3. But it's nice to see Edwards balling out. He was expected to make some noise this summer. He went a little bit under the radar. Now we're finally getting that earthquake we all knew he could bring. But it wasn't all rosy. Stefan Wisniewski continued to struggle snapping the ball, like badly. Wiz was consistently low, forcing Thorson into awkward angles to snag it out of harm's way, and making matters worse, Matt Pryor was flagged on several occasions for the 2nd week in a row. At this point, their roster stock has dropped massively, and my bold prediction since day 1 this offseason, my first 53-man roster prediction had this: I don't think Wisniewski is going to make this roster. I think coming out of OTAs, the fact that the Eagles would rather play a guy that's primarily played tackle since joining the NFL in Halapoulivaati Vaitai at right guard as a starter until Brandon Brooks is healthy, as opposed to a guy that won them a Super Bowl as their starting left guard, it speaks volumes. I don't think the confidence is there in Wisniewski, and if they cut him before the deadline, I think there's a way they can get round without paying him the guaranteed money. So they may well cut him and bring him back later on. That may save them some extra cap space, but I can't see Wisniewski making this roster. And as for Matt Pryor, he's just done himself so much damage. We're halfway through preseason. Unless there's something he's got hidden up his sleeve, the future's looking a bit bleak. But overall, it was just really good football. With that said, in comparison to last week's mess, this was fundamentally sound football. Aside from a few penalties and missed tackles, this team played to a much higher standard than they did last Thursday, and it elevated just about everybody. There's very little to nitpick here, and the developmental guys look good, the starters and rookies look promising, and those on the bubble left it all out on the field. I don't know what more anyone could ask, but what I would ask of you guys is if you could let me know down in the comments what you want to see between now and next week's preseason game. I want to get a couple of film room videos out. I'm thinking of one on Clayton Thorson just because he deserves one at this point, but let me know what you want to see down in the comments below. Guys, thank you so much for all of the support over the last few months or so. It's crazy to see how quickly this channel is growing, and of course all of you for tuning into the live stream as well. You can follow me on Twitter at Liam Jenkins PSN, but until next time, I'll see you soon.